To quad track or not to quad track? That is the question. Quad tracking is a very powerful tool, but just like any other powerful tool, if it's not used properly, it could do more harm than good. When used correctly, it can make your guitar sound massive, but in the wrong place, it could make your tone smeared and sloppy. In my 20 plus years of recording guitar, I've used quad tracking lots of times, but not exclusively. The key to getting this approach to work for you is knowing where to deploy it. In today's episode, I'm going to show you when to quad track and when to stick to a pair of stereo rhythms. This way, your guitars always sound great. Welcome back to the Riff Haven Audio Podcast. I'm Dan Ferguson, engineer, producer, and owner of Riff Haven Audio here in Long Island, New York. When I first discovered quad tracking, I definitely came down with a case of shiny new thing syndrome. This was going to be the thing that transformed my guitar tone into that crushing pro sound that I was after. I quickly realized that quad tracking everything was a mistake. It definitely helped some riffs get that thick wall of sound that I was after, but it also left other riffs sounding blurred and sloppy, no matter how tight the performance was. When you record rhythm guitars, you should always experiment, but in my experience, there is a method to the madness. So let me share with you what I've learned. If you're recording an articulate riff, stereo rhythms is the way to go. These types of riffs just sound better with two guitars as opposed to four, particularly the pick attack. The guitars just cut more, and everything sounds more clear. On the other hand, if you're ringing out chords or single notes, or you're chugging along with palm mutes, quads is the way to go. Whether it's a driving verse riff or a slamming breakdown, layering four guitars on top of each other is going to give your tone the weight and the size that you're after. Let me show you what I'm talking about. All right, guys, so let's go through this here. Essentially what I have is a riff that is pretty intricate in the beginning, and then it kind of opens up and then goes into a breakdown. So I've recorded 4 takes of this, and just to be clear with what we're talking about when we're talking about quad tracking, we're talking about 4 separate performances of the same part. So we have the first 2 here in red, and the second 2 are in yellow. So what you're going to hear the first time, I'm going to mute the quads. What you're going to hear the first time is just the pair of stereo rhythms. So a left and a right with drums and bass. Let's check it out in the mix. All right, so if we wanted more beef to this, but we quad track the whole thing, you're going to hear that the intricate riff in the beginning that's got a lot of notes is going to kind of get muddied up a little bit. So I'm going to unmute the quads, and just for context here, I have the same Archetype Nolly, the same setting here. It's got a little EQ on it. And the same exact guitar tone is going to be in the quad tracking. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on, I've gained it out so that the output is about the same volume. Now, even though there's 4 guitars, so I lowered the bus a little bit so that they're at the same volume. So here's what it sounds like with 4. So for my ears, the beginning part, the quad tracking didn't help at all. As a matter of fact, the tightness of the playing kind of loosened up because there were 4 different parts being played there. And I did edit it to try to make it as tight as possible. But it just, with 4 guitars there, there's just too much. I did think, though, that it lended itself to when the riff opened up, and even in the breakdown, it got a little bit better. So one of the things that you can do is you can do both. So what I would suggest for this particular, if this were a song that I was mixing, I would keep that first riff as a pair of stereo rhythms, and then I'd bring in the quads in the second half. So let's try that. All right, so what I've done here is I've automated the guitar bus down 2 dB. As you can see, the quad is muted until the riff opens up. So you're going to hear the quads come in when the riff opens up, and the volume of the guitar bus should stay the same because I compensated with this little automation here. So let's check out what this sounds like. I mean, you could hear it. The layers of the extra guitars absolutely add weight and depth to the guitars. It just gives you that massive wall of sound that you want for those kinds of riffs. So I'm going to give you a pro tip for quad tracking guitars. What I like to do when I'm quad tracking is I like to change as many elements of the guitar tone as possible for the extra 2 guitars. So for example, I might use a different kind of guitar, maybe a different kind of guitar that has different pickups than my main tone. I'll change the amplifier head. I'll change the cabinet. I'll change the microphone. I'll change the overdrive pedal. If you tweak lots of different things about the quads that you're using on top of your main tone, it's just adding all these extra nuances and elements that are going to be different from your main guitar. Now, it might sound great if you have 2 of the exact guitar tones, but what I like to do is I like to analyze the main tone and see kind of where it's lacking, or what part of the frequency spectrum could I add to that could really give this part that I'm quad tracking the emphasis that I want. So that's kind of what I did for this. So as you can see here, for the main tones, we're using the Archetype Nolly plugin here with a little bit of EQ. And for the quads, what you just heard was the same guitar tone layered on top of each other. But what I did was I muted that, and I'm using Will Putney's STL Tonality plugin. That's got a different EQ than the Archetype Nolly had. So this guitar tone, if you want to just hear it on its own, sounds like this. So it's a little crunchier, a little more top end. And when I blended the 2 together, I really like the way it sounded. So what you're going to hear this time around is the same thing. It's going to be the main tone, just 2 guitars for that first riff that's fast, and then the quads are going to come in at the same part, but this time the quads are a different guitar tone. See how you like this one. Yeah, to me, the open chord part and the breakdown, it was just way more in your face when you had 2 different guitar tones layered on top of each other, especially that these new quads with this new tone is a little bit more tight, a little bit more on the top end. I think it just added to the tone nicely. But that's kind of how I quad track guitars. So I hope that gave you a better idea of when to use a stereo pair of rhythms and when to quad track. Now that I've said all that, always remember, experiment, try stuff. You may be playing an articulate riff, quad track it, and it sounds amazing. You may play a quad tracked breakdown and it just sounds better with two. The great thing about this is, you really don't have to decide. If you're like me, you're recording multiple takes of guitars anyway. If you have 4 or more takes of the riff that you're playing, decide for yourself. Listen to what it sounds like quad tracked. Listen to what it sounds like with two. It should be pretty clear which sounds better. If it sounds better, it is better. Go with what you liked best and move on. I hope you guys got something out of that. If you did, like and subscribe. You could follow me on social media at Riff Haven Audio. That's all I got for you this week. Riff on. See you next time.